and welcome to Sarah's Stamping Treat. Today we're going to be using our embossing folders with some of our scraps of cardstock to make some really cute cards. I don't know about you, but I always have loads of scraps of cardstock, so I'm always looking for ways to use them up, so hopefully this will help out. So for today's video we're going to be using the embossing folders of the month from Spellbinders. So this one here is the embossing folder of the month with this nice kind of like wavy textured pattern to it. And then here we've got the 3D embossing folder of the month that has this kind of quilted pattern to it, which is really lovely. So we're going to be using both of them today, and we're going to be decorating the cards with some of the other monthly clubs. So for my first card, I've got all these scraps of cardstock, and I've got a piece of cardstock underneath that I cut to card front size and then I've smudged on it, so I'm going to cover that up. And this is the kind of thing that I do when I make mistakes, is I use the pieces of cardstock to like back things where it's going to be covered. So the first thing I'm going to do is just arrange all of these pieces of cardstock on my card front, and to do that I like to start with a piece somewhere in the middle. Because they're all scraps of cardstock, they're not sized to fit exactly on the card front, and so by using a piece that's in the middle, then I can arrange other pieces around it, and I don't then have to worry about finding a piece that exactly fits in the middle afterwards. It's much easier to find pieces for the outside because they can hang over the edge and get cut off. I think actually rather than gluing the pieces of cardstock, I'm going to glue this background, because then I'm not going to get sticky bits hanging off the side and ruin my scissors. So I'm just arranging these and kind of just butting them up against each other. And it doesn't matter that we've got bits hanging off the side, we'll cut those off afterwards. And then I've got this gap here, so I'm going to cut off all the extra pieces and see if I've got a piece that will fit in there. So now I've got my patchwork piece, and I'm going to pop that into the 3D embossing folder and pop that through my machine. So then there we've got our background panel, and I think that embossing it really ties those pieces together. So I'm going to decorate this one with the stamp and die of the month. So we've got these cute gnomes. They're all reading. The theme for this month's Spellbinders clubs is like a reading theme. All the gnomes have books. There's a little pile of books here, and you've got Gnomed Out, You, Books and Coffee are my favourite, Long Story Short, Thanks for Everything, and Make This Birthday one for the books. So obviously these come in the usual beautiful Spellbinders packaging. I've just got samples here, which is why I've not got that packaging. So I've stamped and coloured this image here, and I'm just going to cut it out with a coordinating die. So then I've got an ivory card blank, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. Then I've got a piece of gold that is 4 by 5 1/4 inches, and then I've cut this down to 1/8 of an inch smaller than my gold piece. And then I've cut some layers for behind our cute little gnome. So I've cut those with this Essential Arches cutting dies, which I really love. That is not part of the Spellbinders clubs, that's just one that I bought because it was so useful. So then I'm going to use this sentiment that says, Long story short, thanks for everything. I'm going to stamp this onto cream cardstock. So then I've got these modern oval dies. I've used one to cut out the sentiment and the next one up to cut some gold cardstock. And now I'm just going to layer everything together. You can see how pretty the deboss side of that is as well. And then I'm going to pop up the little gnome on foam pads as well. And then there's that card finished. So for this next card, I want you to use your imagination a little bit, because I would usually do this technique with the ends of embossed panels. So like when you emboss a piece of cardstock that's too big for what you want and you end up with strips. So I just tear down the edges, but I particularly want to use this pink paper today, and I don't have this on the pink paper. So I'm going to create today's one from a whole bit of cardstock. But usually you would just tear the edges on a scrap of embossed cardstock. And you might want to use like different colours or things like that to create your stripes, but today I just want a bit of a subtle background, so I want to use this pink with the cream, and I've just used that wavy pattern embossing folder. So I think the torn edges make it have a bit of a different look. I'm just going to glue my pink cardstock onto a panel of cream cardstock, and this is a full card panel, even though I'm going to end up cutting it down. And I tend to do that when I'm creating backgrounds, because it means that you can kind of cut off any rough edges, or like for example, if I end up with a bigger stripe over this side than this side, then I'll cut down this side so that they're more even. Then we'll obviously cut the edge off that. I'm just going to leave it to dry for a second before I do that. So then here I've got all the pieces to make up the really cute owl from the small die of the month, which I know was a bit of a favourite when I showed the previews for this month's clubs. And it is super cute. And by the way, all of this is cut from scraps as well. And that's part of the reason why I didn't have any pink scraps for this, because I used a lot of them for die cutting various things for my videos. Because the other thing that you can do, if you've got scraps that aren't already embossed, you can just cut strips of card and place them all in the embossing folder and do it that way instead. But I wanted it that particular pink. I've used all the scraps of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stick a scrap of cream cardstock onto the back of here, just so that you've got the cream showing through the front of there. You could obviously do it as a die cut inlay, but I think that looks quite cute. So then we've got these little pieces that go on the eyes, and everything is embossed onto the die cuts. Like you can see there are places to put the cheeks, there are places to put the beak, so you know where everything goes. So I'm going to pop on the beak, I'm going to pop on the eyes, and then there are these pieces for the cheeks, but I'm not sure whether I really need those. So just so you can see, that's it with them, but I think I'm not going to use them pieces. But I'm going to add these really cool glasses. I love these little glasses, they're so cute. I actually think you could make a really cute card with the glasses by cutting them in different colours and just using them as a background for a card. I think that'd be really sweet. Oh, I have noticed actually, I should have put this piece on before I put on the glasses. So let's try and slide that under while the glue is still wet. So that goes under here. So then I'm going to add some glue onto here and put that under this side. And again on these pieces there's embossed bits so you can see where to lie them. So on here I'm going to put glue on this side because there's an embossed line here that you might not be able to see on camera, and then I'm going to add this piece onto the top over that embossed line, and then I can add that onto there, and then I can add these under here. He's so cute. So that's the actual owl finished, and then we've got all these accessories too. So we've got this book. And the thing I love about Spellbinder's dies is they really make them so that every little detail's thought of. Like the pages come together here, but not in a dead straight line, in a slightly curvy line, as though they're actually really pages. And then I love that everything's embossed so that you can tell exactly where something goes. And then there's this little scarf as well. And we've got this little letter as well. So I know there's going to be loads of Harry Potter lovers out there making owls with Harry Potter coloured scarves and spell books, and then they can carry the letters. And I know that people might want to make ones for in like college colours. I mean, this would be great for graduation if you had a little graduation cap die. But I've gone for green and pink today. So how cute is that all made up now? So then this time I'm going to use this sentiment that says, let's make this birthday one for the books. So then let's start gluing all this together. By the way, this gold piece on the back of the sentiment is just a piece that's like 1/8 of an inch bigger than the sentiment. So then we have got the little letter that we could use, but I don't think that I'm going to use that. I don't think it needs it. So then how cute is that one? So then for this next card, I've just placed some of these scraps into my embossing folder, and I've just embossed the scraps as they are. These pink ones are left over from the last card. It's the bit from the end that we ripped off. And then I'm just placing these round. We're mixing and matching across the two embossing folders. And I'm just placing these around with a gap around the edges. We're going to make a 5x7 card for this one. So the gold piece is 6 3/4 by 4 3/4 inches. And I think it's quite nice to get the different textures from the two embossing folders. And we're covering the centre bit, so I'm not worried that it looks all higgledy-piggledy in the centre. So for the focal point for this card, I'm going to use the Stitching Day of the Month club. And I am absolutely in love with this club. It's so pretty. So you can see I've already stitched this piece onto this cup. And I've done the same on here. So I'm going to show you how to do this on here. It's the exact same process for all 3 pieces. So usually I only use 2 strands of thread for stitching, but I'm using 3 today because the process of this, it just fills out quicker if you use 3. So I'm going to go up here and I'm just going to take the back down so I don't have to worry about that coming through. And that's the lovely thing about sewing onto card, is that you can have little cheats like that. So I'm just going to the outside, then back into the centre one. So every time I'm coming back into the centre of the circle, then I'm going to the next one, back into the centre, to the next one, and so on all the way round. So then you get this little kind of like star shape, and you could absolutely leave it like that. That's what I usually do. Spellbinders have a lot of this kind of shape on their stitching dies, and usually I just leave it like that, but I thought we'd do something a little bit different today. So I'm going to come back up the centre, and then I'm going to weave in and out of the strands. So I'm going under a first one, it doesn't matter where you start, over the next one, under the next one, over, under, over, under, over, under. And when you come back to the start, you just need to go under 2 instead of 1. So then when you go around the next time, you're going over the ones you went under previously and under the ones you went over previously. And slowly the thread just kind of wraps around itself and fills out that circle. And it's dead easy to see when you've come back to the beginning again, because if you didn't go under 2, you'd start following the same pattern as the last one, going under and over the same ones, and you don't want to do that. And so really it's a really simple process, because you're just weaving it in and out of the threads themselves. You're not actually going to the back of the cardstock or anything. And then you know you're done when it starts looking like that and the stitches are kind of filled out. So then you can just thread it behind the stitches and through that centre piece again, through to the back. And then you can just snip that off. So that's exactly the same process for those three and for this one. And then I'm going to grab some green thread and I'm just going to use 2 strands this time. And then I'm just going to thread that through here just to keep the ending. And then all I'm going to do is just run up and down here. And then I'm just going to go down back through there and up the next one. And then I'll just thread it through here to get to the other side. And I'll carry on the other side of this. I'm also going to use that same exact stitch just to go across the edge of this book. So then for the sentiment for this, I have hot foiled these sentiments, which are from the Glimmer kit of the month this month. So you get this stripy pattern and you get these sentiments and the die to cut them out. So we've got Our Story is My Favourite, Magical Wishes for You, Enjoy Your New Chapter and Coffee Books and You. And I'm going to use the coordinating die to cut that out. So then you get all the individual sentiments. So I'm going to use this Enjoy Your New Chapter. So now I can start building up my card. So some of the dies for this come in 2 pieces. So I've used both of these pieces to cut out the cream piece so that I get this detail, and then just the one behind to cut out this. And I really like that they do that because number one, you can have a nice piece to go behind like that, but also it means that you can use this separately. So if you wanted to stamp an image onto it, or if you wanted to put a sentiment on it or something like that, then it just makes it so much more flexible. So I'm going to glue those 2 pieces together. And then I've done the same with this as well. So again, this comes in 2 pieces. So I've used the outside piece to cut a piece for the back, and then this piece to cut the front piece. And then the 2 pieces together to cut the pink piece. So then for this piece, you get the piece that cuts out this, and then this piece that cuts out this. So I'm going to glue that onto there. And then I've got this piece to go in here as well. And then I can layer up the pieces for all the flowers as well. It's such a lovely kit because there's so many pieces that you could use individually. Like I use flowers on so many things, so you could just use them as like to decorate a card. You could use the cup without the books, with the books on their own. I think for me this is probably my favourite kit this month. And that's mainly just because I've got so many ideas for it. So then I've got this piece of green cardstock that's 3 3/4 by 5 3/4 inches. I'm going to start stacking focal point on here. Then I'm just going to place that on there a second while I glue the flowers behind it. And then I'm going to pop the teacup up on some foam pads. There's our main focal point done. So I'm going to layer this onto a piece of gold cardstock that's just 1/8 of an inch bigger than it. And this gold cardstock from Spellbind is really cool because it's gold on both sides. So if you're making things like flowers with it, or butterflies where you might curl up the wings or the petals, then you can't see the white the other side. It's gold. So then I'm going to pop that up on there, I think. So I'll glue this onto my card front first. So that's a 5x7" ivory card front. Now I'm going to pop foam pads behind here. Obviously if you're worried about postage, then just glue it on. So then there's that finished card. I'm so pleased with how that's turned out. I really love those dies. And I also just think that that texture in the background and having the different patterns just really adds something to it, and you've got all that lovely texture in the background. So then there are all 3 of today's cards. Do let me know in the comments which is your favourite. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's video and that you got some ideas for using up your scraps with your embossing folders. I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd really appreciate you clicking like below, and you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got a new video available. All of the products that I've used for today's cards are listed in the description below, and there's also a link there to my blog where you can find a picture supply list if that helps you find what you're looking for. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.